Hi everyone, and welcome to this workshop series on branding. My name is Chris Converse, and today we'll be visualizing our brand in the real world. We'll make use of some templates on Adobe Stock that will help us quickly see our brand on collateral material or as a piece included in an installation. Then we'll hop over to Substance Stager and design a branded product using design assets and a 3D model. We'll combine and customize textures, add lighting effects, and map our 3D object onto an Adobe Stock photo to create a photorealistic scene. And finally, we'll apply an interface screen to a product by combining a digital design that we created inside of XD with a model that we received from a manufacturer that we're going to be partnering with. Now, if you'd like to follow along with me, I'll be using photos and templates from Adobe Stock and some starter assets included with Substance Stager. So with that, let's continue on and get started. If you're going to be following along with me, you'll need to log into your Creative Cloud account, which will also log you into Adobe Stock. We'll be using environmental templates available from Adobe Stock to visualize our brand in real-world settings, and I'll show you how to search for those. We'll also be using Illustrator to create a pattern from our logo and saving that to our Creative Cloud library. We'll also be customizing those environmental templates with Photoshop. And finally, we'll use Substance Stager to design a branded product and create a realistic photo shoot by combining Substance Stager with an Adobe Stock image. Now, if you don't currently have a subscription to Substance Stager, the 30-day free trial will give you access to the application and a series of starter assets, including the sports bag that we'll be designing. So when you're ready, join me in the next video and we'll get started. Now, before we start applying our branding elements to environmental templates and models in Substance Stager, I want to create a pattern so we have something that we can actually use as another design element. So in the project files, if you've downloaded those, you can open the file called Altura Athletics logomark red.ai. It's the file I have open right here. And so I've colored this red just so we can see what we're doing when we create our pattern. So let's come in here and select and copy all of this artwork. So go to Edit, choose Copy, close this file. Let's go File, New. I'm going to choose a web style here just so I can get the RGB color space and the 72 dpi. Let's come up here to the width and set this to 6,000. Hit Tab, come over here to the height, and let's set that to 2,500. And then let's click Create. So now we've got a really large canvas here. Let's hit Command or Control V to paste our artwork. And now what we're going to do is let's zoom up here and let's create a couple of duplicates of this. Before I do that, let me hit Command or Control R to bring up my rulers. I'm going to put a ruler that's going to match the bottom right area here. Then I'll select both pieces of artwork. I'll zoom out a little bit, hold the Option key or Alt in Windows, and I'm going to drag a copy and I'm going to move this until the lower left center of the A down here is in the center of that column. And then I will bring this up a little bit until the top of the A is just above this line here. So that looks good. Now we're going to come in here and select both of these. Make sure we don't select the guides. Option drag another copy. Let's rotate these 180 degrees. We'll move these around. And now we're going to move these so that the point over here, this little point of the A that's now upside down, we're going to have this overlap just a little bit, about right here. And I'm going to be looking to this bottom A here. I'm going to have this intersect the horizontal rule. So now we can zoom out. We've got this kind of pattern here. I'll come in here and delete my guides. Now what we're going to do, zoom out a little bit more, is I'm going to marquee select all of the artwork here. Let's go to the object menu. Let's come down to repeat, and I'll come in here and select grid. So what this will do is actually repeat all of my elements, both in a horizontal and vertical format. And I can also control the number of times it's repeated, both horizontally and vertically. So let's come in here and first select our entire grid. Let's move this to the upper left-hand corner. I'm actually going to overlap this a little bit. And what I want to do is just bring this up so that the top of the A is just above the height here. Let's move this to the left a little bit. I just want this to overlap the canvas a little bit so when we bring it into other applications, the pattern can sort of start touching all of the edges. Now we'll zoom out a little bit. Now we can grab the bottom handle here and just drag this down to repeat this pattern out. And this works just like XD if you've used the repeat grid in XD. And let's drag this over to the right as well. So I'm filling up my entire canvas area. Now, as I mentioned, we can control the repeat rates. If you come up here and select this handle and drag this left and right, you can control the number of repeats on the horizontal axis. And the same thing for the vertical axis, drag this up and down. Now with this grid selected, in the upper left-hand corner, you can see the properties here. You can also see this in the properties panel. So what I want to do is come in here and I want to set the horizontal repeat to -232. Then hit tab. Then set the vertical spacing to about 10. That's going to give us this nice little kind of negative space here throughout our pattern. Once we like this with the grid still selected, let's come over here and change the color from red to white. Let's go to the File menu. Let's choose Save. I'm going to save this to my desktop and I'm going to call this Altura Athletics Logo Pattern White. And then click Save. Now another thing you might want to do is save this to your Creative Cloud library. So I'll go up to the Window menu, select Libraries, and then with the Repeat Grid selected, I'll come down here and click on the plus sign and choose the Graphic option. That will take this entire graphic and now save it into my Creative Cloud library. And I can now use my new pattern in any Creative Cloud application. Templates are a way in Adobe Stock that you can get a jumpstart on your creative projects. And there are a ton of different types of templates that you can use. So on the main Adobe Stock homepage, if I come in here and switch the main filter from all to templates, and then come in here and search for a type of template, let's choose shopping bag, I searched for that earlier, you can see a whole bunch of templates that will relate to shopping bags. Now if you scroll through here, you can see that there are tons of options. Now these are all native file formats in either Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign, and if you're working with video and motion graphics, you can get motion graphic templates. Now, if I come over here to the left and activate the filters panel, you can see all of the different types of filters that we can use here. And we can even choose specific applications. So the template that I decided on is this one over here. It has some people sitting here and they have a bag next to them. So if I come down here, this tells me that this is a Photoshop file. And so if I license and download this, this will come down as a Photoshop template or a PSDT file. Then if I come in here and double click that, this will open up as an untitled document inside of Photoshop, which I can see up here. So now with templates, they'll all have an area that you can update your artwork or customize some of the settings that have already been set up. If I come over here to the Layers panel, I can see there's a Smart Object here with a label called Your Image here. And if I double click the Smart Object, this will open up all of the contents inside of the Smart Object. I'll choose Update to the text layers. And in here, I can see the artwork that's being used to map to the original photograph. Now, if I come in here and make a change, maybe I come down and select this graphic element. I'll just transform this, move this down, maybe hide one of the text layers, maybe that one. Command and Control S to save my file. You'll see in the background that comp has been modified. So this gives me a great way to come in and add my own artwork and have all of the other elements done for me, the masking, color adjustments, and everything else. So to begin designing our bag, let's go back to the project files. Let's come in here and select the logo gray and the mark red, the two Illustrator files. I'll drag these right into Photoshop. Press return twice. Then over in the layers panel, let's come in here, select both of these, and I'm going to move these outside of that placeholder. I'll collapse that folder and then hide it. Then let's come in here, select the mark, Command and Control T to transform, Option or Alt drag down, press return, and I will scale and reposition the logo as well. Move this down to about right here. Now when I want to see the changes, again, I'll hit Command or Control S to save, and I'll see those immediately in the background. So now I want to create a gradient for the background, so I'll bring up my library panel. I'm going to first get the two brand colors on the foreground and background. So I'll come in here and select red, switch to foreground background, apply the orange. Then I'll come back here one more time and just put red on the foreground and orange on the background. Close my library panel. Back in my Smart Object, let's come in here and add a gradient fill. Let's come in here and set this to foreground background. Choose OK. Let's come back in here and let me set the angle to about 135. Hold the Shift key. We can see that showing up here. Actually, let's do it the other way. I want red at the top, orange on the bottom right, then click OK. So now let's come over here to the mark. Let's select this. Let's color this white by applying a color overlay. Choose white, click OK. Then I'll put the gradient behind the logo as well. Now to see how this looks, I'll hit Command or Control S again to save this, and we'll see that in the background. Now one thing to keep note of is the artist who created this template also took into account that this content would look like it was printed on a bag. So they have done some of the desaturation here. So even though the hues in my smart object are really strong, they look a lot more matted in the photograph. So this looks a little bit more realistic as to how this will look when it's actually printed. And now looking at this, that feels like a lot of color. So let's come in here and just create a custom shape for that gradient. So let's come in here to our toolbar. I'm going to select my rectangle tool, make sure that I have no rounded corners selected. I'll come over here to the canvas in the smart object, and I'll draw a rectangle that goes beyond the left and right sides of the canvas, but not too tall. I'm going to press return. For the color, temporarily, I'm going to set this to something really gross, so maybe a green color. Option or Alt Delete. Next, I'm going to select the direct selection tool so I can edit the points. Come back over to the shape. I'm going to marquee select the 2 points on the left. I'm going to start to drag these up. Once I do that, Photoshop's going to ask me if I want to convert this into a regular path, which I do. So I'll come in here and click yes. Then I'll grab the points on the right side. And what I want to do is create an angle that kind of matches the direction of the movement in the logo mark. So I'll select all of these, move this down. So this is something that you'll do optically because there are a lot of different angles happening here. So this feels like the general direction of that angle to me. So now I'll come in here and select the top 2 points. Hold the Shift key. I'm going to bring these up. And I'm going to bring this up to about half of the height of the A. So from this point to this point, I'm going to go from about there to there. And then I'll bring the bottom to about right here. I'll click away, go back to the layers panel. I'm going to put this layer underneath the gradient, select the gradient, and then come up to the layer menu and come down and choose Create a Clipping Mask. That will then mask the gradient to that shape. Let's select the logo mark. I'm going to come in here and just make this a little bit smaller. Press return, hit save, and now I can see the new design in the background. And once I like the way this looks, I can close my smart object, and then back in my main Photoshop file, I can save this and then share it with my clients. And since these templates really speed up your design time, here's just a couple of additional designs that we came up with after this first one. You can use some of the other assets that we have in the project files and come up with your own designs. Now I want to get a template that will help me visualize my poster in a real-world environment. So on the Adobe Stock site, I'm going to switch over to templates as being the main search criteria. I'm going to search for posters. And in here, you'll find a range of different template types. You'll find templates that will actually give you the template to create the poster, so something inside of Photoshop, InDesign, or Illustrator, or you'll see these environmental templates. And since I want to visualize my poster in a real-world environment, I'm going to choose this one here. And once you license this, just like we did in the last video, you're going to get a Photoshop template file, a PSDT. If you double-click this, this will open up in Photoshop as a new untitled document, which we can see here. And also, just like before, if we explore the layers panel, you'll see areas where you can replace your artwork. And so on most templates, the designers will give you a little bit of a clue as to what can be customized. So this says double-click here to edit. So if I come in here and double-click on this, I can see that this is the poster design. Now this looks like the same in all three. So if I come in here and just make a change, I'll just invert this and save it. You'll see that that actually updates over here. Now, one thing that I want to do is I want to create a poster design that's going to have some common elements across all 3 panels. So what I'm going to do is come in here and do a Command or Control A to select all of the canvas area, come up to the window menu, bring up my info panel, and see that the canvas size is 772 by 1803. So what I'm going to do is create a new Photoshop file that's triple the width so that I can design all of my panels together, and then I'll apply these to the smart objects. So this is going to be a little bit more intricate than what we did in the last example. So I'm going to leave this template up in the background, close my info panel, go to the file menu and choose new. And inside of here, I'm going to come in and set the width to 772, hit tab, 1803. Then I'm going to come back to the width. I'm going to put an asterisk and the number 3. So I'm telling Photoshop to multiply the width by 3. Hit tab. Photoshop does the math. I get 2316. And now I'll come in here and click OK. So now I'm going to zoom out here a little bit. So this is going to be my new design file. I'm going to come over here to the frame tool. Come in here and click and drag. Just draw a frame. Then in the properties panel, I'm going to set this to the size of the original smart object. So 772 by 1803. Hit a tab. We're going to set the X and Y to 0. That's going to position this right here. Then with this selected, go to the File menu, come down and choose Place Linked. I'm going to grab one of my files on my desktop. So I've got this woman running here. Then with this in place, I can hit Command or Control T to transform this, and I can transform the contents, and the frame will make sure that the image is cropped to that exact size. So I can move her into place, press Return, select the main frame, Command or Control J. That will duplicate the entire frame. Then with the frame selected, I can come back to the File menu, come back and choose Place Linked, choose a second image, hit Place, and that will replace the contents for the second frame. Transform. I can scale them up. Crop the basketball a little bit. Move this into place. Then I can select the frame. Then with my Move tool, I can drag the frame over and this will snap into place. And now I can repeat this process to create my third frame. So at this point, let me close this file and show you the final design that I had put together. So here I have my 3 different frames you can see over here on the bottom of the layers panel. I've got my adjustment layers here. We talked about stylizing photography earlier in this series. I added a red bar here with a linear burn. I brought in the pattern that we created earlier in this workshop. And then I just brought in some logos and positioned them in the lower left corner of each panel. So with this design file in place, let me close this. That's the file here on the desktop. Let's go back to the original template file. Let's go into panel 1. And what I'm going to do here is go to the File menu, choose Place Linked, and I'm going to grab my new Photoshop file that is the width of all 3 panels. We'll click Place. I'll see all 3 of these come in. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Let me widen my window. And then I can scale this up to position the first panel in this area here. So bring this up to about right here. I know it's going to be exactly the right height, so I can just scale this into place. Then I can move this to the left, move my file over, press Return, and then when I hit Save, I'll see that she now shows up in the first panel. Close the Smart Object, go to the second Smart Object. I'm going to do the same thing. Zoom out a little bit. I can simply just drag this in here. Let's bring up the guy in the middle. Save, close. Now by dragging it, I didn't get a linked smart object, but I'm just demonstrating how you position all of these inside of these smart objects. So I'll scale this up and then position this over to show the last person. Place, save, close. And now we can see all of our 3 individual panels that match with some of their design elements spanning across that entire template. And then just like I mentioned before, since these templates make it so quick and easy to explore different design ideas, you can bring in additional photographs and design elements and try additional panels like we did here, or take one image and span it across all 3 panels. And in both cases, you can see the artwork here in the lower corner that represents the individual panels that show up in the template. And then once you like how these look, you can share these with your client. Another technique we can use to visualize our brand in the real world is to use Substance Stager and map our artwork to products or customize an environment so we can see how our design will look in the real world. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to come over here and click Create New. And by the way, if you haven't used Substance Stager before, you can come down here and click on Tutorials. I would highly recommend going through this tutorial here where you can actually apply materials and shading and all kinds of lighting effects to a pair of roller skates. And this will give you a great foundation for working with Substance Stager. But I'm also going to walk through my example here step by step. So I'm going to come over here and click Create New. And inside of here, inside of my starter assets, I have mine showing in list view here. I'm going to scroll down and I want to find the handbag. So there's a handbag barrel here. I can simply click on this to apply this to my scene. Then I'll come up to the camera menu and choose Frame Selection. And then if I come over here to my Scene panel, I can see my environment. We're going to talk about that in the next video. And then the handbag barrel group, I can open these up and I can see all of the individual objects that make up this entire model. So now what I want to do is I want to start with one of my materials. So I'll scroll down here to the materials. I'm looking for the natural buffalo leather. Now if I click and drag this and just drop it on top of my model, that's going to apply that material to everything. So one thing you want to keep in mind is to always pay attention to all of the structure of the model. So you can see all of these individual objects here. So I'll hit Command or Control Z to undo that. And if I double click on the actual model, for example, I can see the selection over here inside of the scene. So if I double click on this, this kind of looks like what I want to apply this to, and that is called the main body mesh. So with this now selected, I can come over here, grab my material, just drag and drop it, and it's going to apply that to this area here. Now, one of the great things about the materials in Substance Stager is the amount of customizing we can do. Is the amount of customizations that we can apply to the material itself. So with this selected, I'm going to come over here to my Properties panel. I'm going to scroll down and take a look at all of these properties down here. So I can come in here and change the color variation of this material. So if I drag this up and down, we can see some of the colors changing around. If I change the roughness, if I bring this down to 0, you can see that everything on the surface becomes very smooth. If I drag the roughness up, you can see that we don't get as much refraction of the light. So again, you can just come in here and change so many properties here. We can change the roughness variation, so parts are going to be smooth and parts are going to be rough. That's going to look much more realistic. You can scroll down, we can come down and change a ton of different properties here. And now different materials are going to give you different settings, so be sure to look at the Properties panel after you've applied a material. Now the other thing I want to change, if I come up here to the top, is I can change the repeat. Now the repeat is how often that pattern repeats over that material. So if I select this and just hit my up arrow, I can change this at 1/10 increments. And we have a link here, so the X and the Y are being linked together. You can unlink those. And I can just get a much more realistic view of that material depending on how far away I am from the bag. Now I can come in here and use my scroll wheel and zoom in and see exactly how these are going to look and just play with all of these different properties. I'm going to scroll down here and click on the color. I'm going to come in here and make this sort of a dark gray color. I can also come in here a little bit and just tint it a little bit of a shade. So maybe something like that. Press the escape key and really start to customize the style of that material. Now another example, I'll come in here and select the zipper. So if I double click on this, pan around, switch to my move tool. With the zipper selected, I'm going to come over here to my materials. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for a brushed metal. Click and drag this. I'll drop it right on top of the zipper and we can see that material being applied as well. And now the other thing that I want to do is I want to apply some of my own artwork to this. So I'm going to come over here and click on my panning tool. I'll pan over a little bit. Select the move tool. I'm going to move the object. Then I'm going to double click. I'm going to select the barrel, the same place we applied our natural buffalo leather. I'll click on this icon here to place an image on the model. Let's go into our project files. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select the Altura logo white. Click open. And then that's going to take that graphic from Illustrator and map it onto my model. So now I get some controls here. I'm going to hold the Shift key to scale the logo down or up. I can move this around. Notice how when I click and drag and move this or scale it, it actually moves around the entire model, which is pretty amazing. So what I want to do here is instead of having a really large design, with this material, this feels a little higher end. I might come in here and just understate the logo a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit smaller. Position it up here. Scale this down. And rotate this so that it matches the angle. I'll bring it down by the zipper here just so I can get the angle correct. And then I'll just move this up here a little bit. Now I'm going to come back, make sure I have the main body selected again. I can see my materials. Let's add another graphic and let's come in here and add the white pattern that we created. So logo pattern white, click open. And what I want to do here is map this to the bottom area down here. So using the same techniques, I'm going to come in here, rotate this, kind of match it along that area. I'm going to scale this up So it's as wide as the body area of the bag. And then I'll come in here and just move this down a little bit. Again, making sure to keep the angles the same. And then to check how this is fitting on the bottom, I'll just come in here and just rotate this up a little bit. Double click to select the artwork. And then I'll just scale this a little bit. I'm going to grab the bottom here and not hold the shift key and just scale this down. And then when I like the way this looks, I'll rotate this back. And now I can come in here and select my artwork again. I'll select this graphic here in the Properties panel under Material. Then I'll scroll down. And what I want to do is come in here and change a few properties here. I want to come in and increase the roughness a bit for this model here. And I also want to come in and lower the opacity a little bit. The printing's not going to be that bright on that material, so I'll just bring this down a little bit. And I can also play with the metallic settings too, which controls how this artwork looks against the material underneath. And so I can come in and play with some of these properties as well. And so pretty quickly, we can apply our own artwork and materials to this model and really start to look at how we would apply our brand to different products. And so now with this in place, let's move on to the next video where we'll take this model, we'll map it to an Adobe Stock image and create an entire scene and adjust the lighting based on the lighting, tone, and perspective of a photograph. In this lesson, we're going to continue on from the previous video where we designed this bag, and we're going to put this into an environment that's going to allow us to create an entire scene and apply lighting from the photograph. Now, if you're following along, I would recommend going into the project files and opening up the Substance Stager file in here, the Bag Design 01. This has all of the materials applied and the graphics, so we can all start from the same point. And so back inside of Stager, what we want to do is first come in here, double click the background, which will allow you to select the background of the entire project. Then with this selected, down in the Properties panel, let's come in here and click the plus sign next to background, and we want to add an Adobe Stock image. Now I put a preview image in the project files. I'm going to be working with a licensed version of the same file, and you can just drag this right into this little panel here. You're going to get a dialog box here that tells you we can match image, which we're going to do. So let's just click OK. And so now this puts that image from Adobe Stock in the background. Now the bag is still in its original position. The lighting is exactly the same as we had before. And so this doesn't really look like it's fitting into this scene. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come in here and select Match Image with the background selected. And this tells Substance Stager to evaluate the background photograph, look at the perspective, look at the lighting, the coloring, everything about it. And it actually uses Adobe Sensei in the background. And then it's going to take our model and map it to that photograph. So it looks like the model is part of the photo. So we'll go ahead and click Match Image. We want to set the camera, create lights, and match the camera perspective. So we're going to click OK for all of these. And then we'll give Substance Stager a few seconds here to figure all of that out and make all of the adjustments. Once it's in place, we can come over here and click OK. And now we see a dramatic change in the appearance of our model. It's been rotated and scaled and positioned. It's been colorized, all to match the background image. So let's come in here and select the model, just like we were doing before. So I can come in here to the group, select the handbag. And now the center of this scaling widget lets me move the entire object. So if I click and drag this, notice that it moves in relation to the tabletop. So I'll move this over here. Then maybe I'll just rotate this a little bit. Maybe angle it like this. Maybe move it forward a little bit. So about right there. And now the whole time we've been working inside of Substance Stager, we've been working in this sort of preview mode. In the upper left-hand corner of the main canvas area is this option called ray tracing. Ray tracing is basically a way that a 3D application can figure out all of the lighting, and it can bounce the light around a scene and create a high resolution rendering. So we're going to want to do this when we want to see what the shadows, for example, will look like, and we want to see how the materials will react with the light. So when you enable ray tracing, you'll see that the material starts to look a little bit different. We can see much more of those details that we assigned in the material properties. And then once you like the way the scene looks, you can switch over to the render workspace. You can come in here and set a couple of properties. And there are some presets here which will change sample size and some other rendering properties. The resolution, you can come down here and choose full. On the right-hand side, I typically choose PSD and a PNG file. Click your destination and then click render. Now the rendering time is completely dependent on the size of your model and the size of the overall canvas. But when it's done, you're going to get a beautiful photorealistic rendering of your model with all of your artwork being applied that matches seamlessly into your background. And so here is the final rendering that I can zoom up on, and you can see all of the beautiful details that was created with Substance Stager. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to take a digital interface from XD and apply it to a 3D model. So Altura Athletics has an opportunity to design an application, a fitness tracker for a luxury watch brand. So the manufacturer sent us these models and we were able to bring these into Stager. So let's just zoom up on these and take a quick peek at these. So I'll use my scroll wheel to zoom up, switch over to my pan tool. I can pan through these and take a look. These look amazing with all these beautiful textures and stitching and everything. So if I come over here to my scene panel, I can come over here and see each one of the watches. So let's open up number 4 here, the brown one. I'll open this up. I can see an object in here called interactive screen. If I hide this, I can actually see the design underneath. This was the original design that we got. So they have this digital design that looks like a traditional analog clock. Now what I want to pay attention to on this interactive screen object is its size. So if I come down to the properties panel, look at transform, I can see the size here. 3.26 centimeters by 1.69 centimeters. Now what I want to do is create an artboard inside of XD that has the same proportions to this. So if I switch over to XD, come up here and select my artboard, I've set this to 600 by 314. And on the artboard, I have their analog clock. Now on the right-hand side, there's a series of icons. So I got these icons from them. This is going to be part of their interactive interface, and we're going to be able to add our application icon down here. Now over in Illustrator, I designed 2 different app icons. And I think the one here on the left is going to match their interface a lot better. It's got more open areas and thinner lines. So I'm going to come over here into Illustrator, select all of this, choose Edit, then Copy. Then I'll switch back over to XD. I'll come into here, hit Command or Control V to paste this. That's going to give me a group. Now the first thing I'll do here is turn this into a component. So I'll right click and choose Make Component. I'll name this Altura App. Then I'll open this up. I'm going to select all of our group elements. Let's come over here to our eyedropper. Let's grab one of these colors here. I'm also going to come over here, select the main component. I'm going to turn off responsive resize so I can scale this down as a graphic. Next, I'll move this down into place. Then I'll select the bottom part of the mark. Then I'll apply the slightly darker version of the color here. Then I'll click away, zoom out, and when I like the way this looks, I'll come up here and select the artboard. Make sure that I mark this for export. Then go to the File menu. We'll choose Export. I'll choose Batch. I'll choose the PNG format, save this to my desktop, and then hit Export. And so now I have an image that I can bring into Stager. So let's switch over to Stager. My interactive screen here is still selected. And under Materials, I'll click this icon here to import a graphic. And from the desktop, I'll select our artboard that we exported from XD. Click Open. Stager will place this on the screen. Now we're going to scroll down in the Materials. Then I'll come down to the scaling area and I'll just scale this up to match the size of the object. And then when I come over here and rotate this, you can see that that artwork is being mapped to that object, which is part of the entire watch. And then once I like this, I can hide the other watches. Go over to my Render tab. I'm going to set this to high quality, full resolution. I'm also going to enable the PNG format, and I'm going to save all of these to the desktop and then click Render. And then when it's done, I'll have this beautifully rendered watch that features my XD design on the watch face. Now this brings us to the end of the workshop. So there's quite a few ways that you can visualize your products in the real world. We took advantage of using some environmental templates inside of Adobe Stock, and we modeled our own branded product scene using Substance Stager. And so I hope you'll join me in the next workshop where we're going to create some interactive content for our brand using Adobe XD.